Sound speeds, and welcome to another neat review. Now, I'm not going to go the whole Tom Bug method of punning everything. That is definitely his thing. But I did want to throw that one out because I think it's worth it. Now, before we get going here, full disclosure, Neat Microphones did send me the King B2 in exchange for a fair review. I get to keep it following this video, but I'm not going to allow it to affect my opinion, so you can expect this to be a fair and honest review. Now, if you have not yet watched my review of the Neat Worker B, where I compare it to the King B #1, then you might want to start there, because this microphone here, in an episode of Mass Mics, I did compare it to the TLM-103, which it sounds very close and similar to. Now, if you are not familiar with this whole storyline regarding Neat, I do go into it in more detail than I'm about to right now, but I do want to kind of set it up for you. Neat Microphones originally was started by the founders of Blue Microphones, and then over the course of time, they were acquired, I should say, by Gibson Microphones. And then after a while, when Gibson filed for unemployment, they did buy back their own brand. And at that point, the King B1 dropped in price from $350 all the way down to about $100, and it stayed there for a while. And then in January 2021, Neat was acquired by Turtle Beach. And that's where we are right now. They were just going to let the brand die, but they did decide to redo the microphones and release new versions of them. Now, I am very much, as you know, interested in the Worker B, but I also really like the sound of the King B. Now, at $350, the King B1 was a very good microphone. And so you would expect the same thing to be out of the King B2. And I'm going to be comparing the two of them in this video. But it should be said, if you look at the specifications, they are almost completely identical. I mean, this is one of those few examples where the microphones actually sound very similar. They look very similar, and if you look at the specifications, they are practically identical, with only a few little differences, mainly regarding impedance and weight and stuff like that. But nothing really that stands out as, oh, this should be the deciding factor on whether or not they sound the same. But as you can see, they definitely look very different. Now, I do want to point out a couple of things here. With regards to the King B1, it did come in a totally, different type of box. It was branded for the whole bumblebee type thing. The bees, just, you see the design of it right here. Everything was named after a bee. But the King B2 kind of took a different route here. But you can still see that there is an overwhelming outline of the King B1 in this microphone. I mean, down to the 34mm capsule, which is very, very big, how it kind of tapers off at the back very similarly, and then it goes down here to a very skinny little bit, and then on the inside there, you could almost swear they're the exact same microphone. Now, I bet you they are very different on the inside, especially because they are very different in the way that they're tapered. So this one right here is solid state, obviously, and it would be more square. It's a heavy beast, but then so is the King B2, and it kind of tapers off. It's a little bit of a different design here, but it does taper off more like a bee does. But if you look here, even at the Beekeeper shock mount, it looks very similar. It is better designed, I think, for the microphone than the King B1, which is very, if you notice, it's very top, heavy here. So if you mount it on the side or upside down, it does weight it very awkwardly. But that's not the case with the King B2. It's very much in there and holds very well. So you can mount this one sideways, and it's not going to give you any issues. The windscreen over the front of it is almost identical too, and they both come off very easily. I say that, of course. Let me do it right now. There is this one, and there is the one on the King B1. So you can see right here, they're very similar in design. The only difference is the King B1 has a slightly, yellowish tint to it. But aside from that, they are very similar. I'm going to leave them off the rest of this video. Now, with regards to the box it came in, there was a lot of effort put into making sure that the B microphone on the King B1 looked very unique. And that is very much the case. It is not so much the case with the King B2. On the inside of this here box, there you go, getting all southern on us. This box here is what the King B2 comes in. And on the inside, it's just simply styrofoam, with exception of this paperwork. Now, I do want to point out a couple of things here regarding the specifications we'll bounce back to for a second. They were on the screen a moment ago. I'm going to show them again because here's something I find very interesting. If you look online at the time of this video, you're not going to find a frequency response graph. But if you look at the comparison right here of the frequency response right here versus the one of the King B1, in addition to the specifications, you'll see that they are very similar, if not identical, or in the words of my cousin Vinny, identical. So if you can imagine, this is a case of microphones that are very similar in look, very similar in build, with the exception of the outside, aesthetics. They're going to probably be very similar. Now, why bother change up a winning combination? Even though at just about half the price of the original price of the King Bee, which was about $350, this microphone here is about $179 if memory serves as of the time of this video, and it could go up or down from there. But for the half the price of the original King Bee before it dropped its price tremendously at the very beginning of I wasn't at the beginning of the shutdown of 2020. It actually happened before that. But they were selling like crazy because during the shutdown of 2020, everybody in the world wanted to buy a microphone. And at that point, they sold out very quickly. I think they might have even been sold out beforehand. But if you look at CamelCamelCamel.com, you can price track the King Bee 1 and really see where it was when it dropped, and it only spiked up a couple of times and it basically stayed there until they completely sold out. But now the King Bee 2 is its replacement. You're not going to find the King Bee 1 anymore unless it's used. But is this a winning combination? I will tell you right now, I really like the way both of these microphones sound, and I did flip back and forth between the two of them, and now that I'm going into real comparison mode for this video, if there is any kind of a difference of opinion that I have, then I will tell you right now up on the screen. But I personally think, as I'm listening to them right now, sure, they're big diaphragms. They're going to be very much full of plosives. But I do think they sound very similar. They do sound a little bit different, but they're both warm. They're both detailed. I really like the sound of them both. And honestly, I think it's going to be one of those things where you kind of compare the two of them, depending on the ones you get. You know, the specifications, I don't want to say they lie, but they are built off of a prototype, and they try to duplicate those settings on every single one of the microphones, but there will be fluctuations up or down by about 2 dB or so, sometimes 3 dB. And depending on the quality control of these microphones and what their toleration standards are, they could be upwards or lower than 3 dB. But right now, they are both about a fist distance away from my mouth. And that's where they've been this entire video so far. Now, I'm going to back off just a little bit, and so that way you can get an idea of the way they sound when they're about 6 inches away from my mouth. And I'm going to continue. I do, again, really like the sound of both of these microphones. And will go ahead and tell you in advance, I'm giving them both a big thumbs up because they sound very detailed. They sound very, I don't want to say warm, but they do at the same time. The reason I don't want to say it is because I want you to kind of hear it for yourself. Different voices I've heard online do sound different on the Neat microphones. And whether it's the King or it's the King Bee 2, I do think that they are both very, very flattering microphones. Now, the big question is that I've heard a lot of people say online is, for $180, can you do better? Because when it was $100, it was definitely a steal. When it was $350, maybe not so much. Now that it's about halfway between the $350 price and what, it's half the price now of that, you could definitely say, I think that this is still very much worth it for around $175, $180. $179 is, I think, the price point. And I've not done anything in post, just so you know, except level these microphones as we've been talking and progressing our way through this video. I am still speaking into both of them very evenly at an even distance away. Now, I'm going to back off a little bit more, and we're going to see how it sounds when I'm probably about 9 or so inches away. Yeah, it's about 9 inches away. So we're now talking into both of these microphones approximately 9 inches away, and you're getting an idea of the way that they sound. Keep in mind, I'm not using pop filters or anything like that, and I even removed the pop filters that come with these microphones simply because I like to talk directly into these microphones, blowing my breath straight through them. That way you can hear the way that my voice sounds on these microphones, the way they're intended to sound. When they measure the specifications, they don't measure them with those pop filters on there. So this is the way the microphones were designed to sound, and that's what we're going to be comparing. Oh, and I should also mention that, very much like I've done in the past, I'm not going to let you guys know in advance which microphone is which. You've seen it on the screen since the start of the video, mic 1, mic 2, but which one is which? This could be mic 1, this could be mic 1, this could be mic 2, this could be mic 2. Now, don't go ahead and assume anything, assuming that, oh, he's going to put the King Bee 1 on 1 and the King Bee 2 on 2. Don't assume anything. I may mix it up just because. But right now, I've talked into them a couple of moments here, and I'm still about 9 inches away. I'm going to back off now to a foot away, and we're going to raise the prices. That's great. Like I control the market. We're going to raise up our volume a little bit more in post. That way, there's still level match, because whenever you compare two microphones, you want them to be level matched. That way, you get a good idea of how the two of them compare to each other with all the everything leveled, leveling the playing field. Because if you don't do that, then people are going to naturally assume that the louder microphone is the one that sounds better. That's just, subconsciousness playing in action. It's your ears saying, oh, the louder one obviously sounds better because it is louder. It's one of the reasons why I'm assuming that a lot of people that hear people distort audio and stuff like that, it sounds overly bad because it's very loud. So when you hear ear rape and stuff like that on YouTube, people always laugh at that and say, oh, it's funny because it's loud and distorted. That's partially true, but not in the case of these two microphones, because they are very big and they're very, very good sounding. Now, again, I don't want to say that they're warm, because I've heard them sound differently on different people. What I will say is they're both very detailed. The King B1, I would say it's a warm microphone. The King B2, I would also say is a warm microphone if you were talking to me in the way that they sound on my voice. I do think that these two microphones sound very similar on my voice. And again, just like I said before, if my opinion changes at this point in the video, I will change my opinion and put it up on the screen right now. And you can see what my thoughts are when I've compared these microphones a little bit at a farther distance away. I'm still about 1 foot away. Now I'm going to back off even farther and get an idea of the way that they sound when they're even farther away. Now, both of these microphones are still square to my mouth, and I'm going to back off a little bit farther away now. And so now they're about 18 inches away. Now, why would you want to do something like this? Let's just say that you like to have a microphone and you like to let's say you're reading, copy, and you're doing this kind of thing and reading it. You don't want to have it necessarily in front of you. When you listen to NPR, they don't have a microphone right in front of their face, believe it or not. They're sitting in a big open studio that's extremely quiet, and they do speak quite far away from the microphone, and they do read their copy. Now, granted, it's not two of them when you're having to thread the needle this way. It's going to be slightly off to the side, one side or the other, or it's going to be mounted up slightly above them and angled in towards them, so that way they have all the hand room that they ever wanted. So you can easily read, like on this microphone, I'm reading about the King B2 cardioid solid state condenser microphone. And I will say that there are a couple of things that are definitely noticeably different. You've seen some of the B-roll I put up on the screen, but a little illumination right there on the back of the King B1 that lights up when you put phantom power through it, does not exist on this microphone. Unless I'm somehow missing it, but I have not noticed it at all on this microphone. It is very black, which is cool. It's a very cool look, and I have not taken it apart at all, but I will tell you here, this microphone is still very solidly built. Now, one thing that a lot of people like to hear is the resonation of the microphones, and so I'm going to do the same thing. King B1? Well, actually, I'm not going to do that just yet, because I have not done my reveal yet. But what I will tell you right now is, from the very beginning of this video, you have been listening to the King B1 as microphone number 1 and King B2 as microphone number 2. Cool. Now that I've done that reveal, now let's listen to the resonation. Tapping the front. Now, on the King B2. Sounds a little more dense, doesn't it? This sounds a little more hollow on 1. And you hear how it's got a different ring to it. Listen. Almost sounds like the same kind of metal. Sounds denser. Let's tap on the back of them. It almost sounds like you can do some music or something like that. Kind of interesting. I know I'm driving myself crazy in post, flipping back and forth so that way we can hear which microphone I'm tapping. But here's what I will say as I'm ending this video. As you know, I was very biased towards and in favor of the King B1. And going into this video, I did have some suspicions that they would try to emulate the magic of the King B1. Did they achieve it? What I will say is I'm going to move back in close to where you normally want to be on these microphones, bring the level back down so that way it's evenly matched. And now I'm only about 4 or so inches away from the microphone, and this is where we're going to finish this video. I will tell you this right now. I do think that the King B2 is a great microphone. I do think that At the price point of $175, $179, it is a very good microphone to get. It is better than the microphones that you would find, the condensers that are around $150. There are going to be some microphones that it is going to achieve and outperform around the same price point. There might other microphones that you would think achieve more and are better than the Neat King B2. What I will tell you though is that if I were to buy a King B2 for $180, I would still think it's a good deal, because to me it sounds very close to the King B1 does, and it does sound very good on my voice. It's very detailed. It's very crisp. You're hearing all the detail that I would want to come out in a microphone, and you're not hearing it in a very offensive way. And one of the things you have to also keep in mind is that you don't have to, even with a 34 millimeter diameter, capsule on it, you don't have to wear a pop filter. You've only heard me kill these things with plosives only a couple of times in the videos in the past, and I'm not going to do that now. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. King B1, if I say, pesky porcupines prefer pink pickles. Big boys bow before Beavis. Pesky porcupines prefer pink pickles. Big boys bow before Beavis. So they both sound, pesky porcupines prefer pink pickles. Big boys bow before Beavis. They sound very similar to me, and they both sound very good. So if you like the way that the original King B1 sounds, you very well might like the way the King B2 sounds. Now, if you got yourself kind of in the mode of this is a $100 microphone, you might want to undo that way of thinking, because it was a $350 microphone before they went on extreme sale after the Gibson sell-off, and they bought their own brand back from Gibson. So consider this, because this is definitely a price that is here to stay. And I'll tell you this, I'm very interested to seeing the Worker B2, because Neat, I think, is definitely back. Turtle Beach at this point in time has changed the look. It's very dark. It's very, cool looking. And they are definitely allowing Neat at this point in time, at least by my suspicions, and I could be totally off in the company structure. I think personally that they are allowing Neat to do their thing, and allowing them to create the microphones that they're well known for. People love the King B1. Why bother changing it up? Obviously, the design of it is different, and they still just added the number 2 behind it, but it's a winning microphone. Why bother changing it? So that's my opinion on this video. Thank you for tuning in this episode of Sound Speeds, and be sure to tune in the future for more interesting reviews, even if they are short and very much like one take with B-roll and other testing, that kind of thing, simply because what can I possibly add to it other than an A-B comparison? And, I could A-B compare it to other microphones too, but here's the thing. We're comparing it to the original. We already know the original is a winning one. Why bother changing it and comparing it to anything else when you already know that the OG is all in well? Thank you for tuning in this episode of Sound Speeds, and be sure to tune in the future for more product reviews. Who knows whatever else I'm going to do next? And of course, sound advice.
Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.